I thought I had lost these, but I found it. If you've seen the paper roll effects launch videos that I've made, a couple of people had asked me how did I create that intro sequence that I did. And to be honest, it was pretty easy, and I actually used the paper roll effects elements for that. So in this video, we'll do a little breakdown of what is happening. I just got done recording and I just realized that I forgot to set up the resolution of the DaVinci Resolve window to 150% before recording, but I'm just gonna have to zoom in a bunch of stuff. So if it is a little bit too small, that is why, but nonetheless, it's not that big of a deal. Let's watch the video. So the first thing we have here is, and I'm not entirely sure what this is black right here. Let's see. It seems that this was not rendered or something. Let's see. I'm not entirely sure why that just happened right now as I'm recording. It just freaked out. But let me see. Damn it. This always has to happen, right? It's something like, I don't know, whenever you have to. Oh, great, it's crashed. Let me pause this. Okay, we're back. So let's continue. It was this section right here that was freaking out for some reason. So I had to end up re-adding that transition, which is not a big deal. I just found it right here. All right, so let's get started. I'm gonna mute everything. And if you wanna mute everything, you just hold shift and then click on one of those. And that way it just mutes everything. Same thing happens for video if you wanna deactivate everything like that. Just a little extra tip. All right, so the first thing that we have here on these logo that we have for that's the DaVinci logo is just a normal paper full effect collage effect, which is the number 10. We have the intro and the outro active because actually I'm not sure why the outro is on right here. It's not supposed to be. If this was checked right here, it was gonna deactivate or become down, or like, what do you call that, disappear. But I think it's because I had created this compound clip right here and then froze that, then it doesn't do anything, right? Because I had cut this right here. So if I open this compound clip, so that's basically the first intro. And then on the effect itself right here, let me make this bigger like that. It's just like that. I just made the paper a little bit bigger and used the media section right here to make the adjustments for the logo. All right, now we're gonna open these in a timeline view so we can see these next sequence, which is the one that I created by basically turning these into a compound clip, I think, and then using Fusion in it. So let me open these in a timeline view first. So we have the different letters right here, and if you were to just look at them like that, it just looks like just one on top of the other. So what I ended up doing here was I went and opened this in Fusion and I created a 3D plane composition of all of these. So for each element that we had right here, we have its own image plane right here, these little image plane 3D, and then I positioned them just like that, adjusting the position of those like that, and then just use a normal or just a simple camera movement of the camera going backwards. Now I also animated this 3D plane so that the background is always static, right? Because if we were moving this camera backwards and this was not scaling up, let me just click this, it will look like this, and the whole thing will just stay small. So by adding those simple keyframes right there, we make sure that that is actually kept in basically the same position as in the intro. Maybe it becomes a little bit smaller, bigger or smaller, but that's pretty much it. There's not that big of a change that happens right here. So yeah, the paper themselves are just the generators that are already pre-animated, as you can see here, and then the image plane are positioned in a way that we create that sort of like depth effect, right? Which a lot of people had liked and asked about that. How did you do that? That looked cool. So yeah, that's how I created that part. Then let's take a look at these one. For some reason, this was taking way too long to render right now. But it's basically a compound clip of these letters just forming the full effects, and then 3. And I think there was another video, because in the latest video that I did for the paper full effects, which was update 3 point something, I had not found these at that time, so I ended up, I think, adding just something on top of that, like a video clip of this intro sequence. So I'll have to add these something when there's a new update or something like that. So yeah, that's just a compound clip that has all the generators and pre-made generators, and then I just use these positions to adjust the position and then form the word right here in the name. So you have the paper, it keeps happening, and then the fold forms on top, and then we have FX3. Now I think a lot of people like this part because it was really cool how these person right here showed up, and it was just a random image. I just grabbed a bunch of random videos that I thought looked cool, and then I just put them together and try to mix them up like this. So in this case, we have the paper transition, and I have Studio, so I use the magic mask to mask out these woman right here that's on her phone. So it's just a clip like that. It's masked out. If you have the free version, then you can do the same, but you just have to spend time using the polygon and masking things out like that. And then the simple one, which is I just dropped these video transition 14, which if it was a full what do you call a full video, not a masked person, it will look something like, let me actually just take a look at these so I can show you right here. But yeah, I'll just show you in post. So yeah, basically it just looks like that paper fall effect of person just unfolding, and she's actually moving still, so it's fine. But if you want, you can actually freeze the first frame or the last frame of that first clip, or the first frame of that second clip, right when basically these frame would have been frozen, or this one right here, the last one of the little transition space, I guess you could call these. Now I mixed this up with the image of, or the actual background of this girl again, so that it looked a little bit more interesting. So we have these little flash transition, and then just for a few frames you can actually see the whole clip happening, because it's pretty fast, right? So just to transition and add that background, I added that, and now we have that full clip. Now if I were to continue, I added these paper full effects transition 7. That is it was not an actual paper transition, but I built that using different stuff all inside Fusion, right? So it's a little bit of a different style, just sort of like photo type of almost, because we have this clip, which is the first section, turn into a little square on this side, and the whole thing moves. And then we have this other one, which is that second clip that comes in, showing up right here, and then another part of that clip right here as well. I can't remember exactly if I actually had, yeah, this is pretty set up already, so I didn't have to adjust any of the media in here, right? So if we just continue, then it just shows up, and last portion of that transition becomes that clip, or the center clip becomes a little bit bigger, so it rotates, and then it just jumps into this one right here. Then we have this one, which doesn't have anything because it looks cool. 4 3 2 1, sort of like mixing it up, right? Just adds a little bit more of a like an attention grabbing type of element because of the counter or the countdown. And then it stops right here, and then we have another simple transition that is the paper full effects 18, that is just sort of like a paper going through like that. You can see the texture right here, and now if I wanted, I could have just added that texture right here. I think I added a texture on this one, but I could have added this texture from the paper full transition 18. I think, let me check the texture right here. Paper texture, I'm not sure which texture I used for that one, because these textures are taken from the actual effects, right? Could be that one. No, it has this little fold right here. Let's see. Not this one. So there's a different textures that I could have added and dropped right here, but I can't remember which one it was. Maybe I should add one that has the same name. That way people can, if they're using a transition and they want these to continue with that texture, they can just drag and drop like that there and continue with that texture. Like for example, if I drop this right here, then we have that texture. Now it's double texturized, right? But we have that happening right there. It looks pretty cool with the textures. I've been wanting to create more textures. I just haven't had the time for it. But it's on the list of things that I want to do sometime. Now we have these other flash transition, which is pretty useful when you want to transition from one clip to another. If you're working with clips that have like effects, I think that's a really cool touch to do this, sort of like a flash type of camera transition, right? Now this one is a compound clip that is texturized. As you can see here, the SUALVI paperful collage. Actually, this one has the paperful effect. It's not texturized, but it doesn't have the intro, so it just shows up completely like that. If this was on, then we'll have that animation. And then I had to, okay, let me just open these in the timeline view. And I used the generator of the different cutouts. Now, I'm not 100% happy with how these turned out because they were too big. I need to make them a little bit smaller because they look way too big in my opinion. And it doesn't sell the effect that well as if they were a little bit smaller or thinner, because I think I was a little bit too zoomed in when I took this picture. So while I was working on a small little paper, then this ended up looking really like a big scratch, right? So that was the thing with these, but they look cool either way. I like the way that these end up like they just add like a special cool touch to the clip right here. So yeah, that's just a bunch of different generators that just pop up and show up like that. This was a frozen frame of that clip because nothing happens right here, but then it was animated here in the zoom and the rotation just a little bit, so that there's still a little bit more movement. And we have this flash right here as well because to transition from one of the other one, you can see that there's a little zoom in right here, or like the change of the clips. This one has a little bit, it's a little bit smaller or further away, right? So then we have that little rotation and the different scratches appearing, and it just zooms in like that. And then we have this one, which is the same Paperful Effects 15 right here, but this is the outro. And in this effect right here, this is not the latest version, it seems. If I were to just copy these and add that Paperful Effects 15, remember I told you I didn't know where this file was, right? I didn't know where I had built these originally, so I couldn't really. So these are a few versions out of date. So if I were to just drag and drop these 15, now we have the actual duration controls here, so that you can adjust the duration of the actual intro or outro effect. Now this is a combat clip, so it's taking out that last frame, right, as a reference. So I'm just gonna delete that so I can continue to show you. So basically I had cut these so that I can adjust and have the outro portion right here just starting right at that moment. Otherwise it was, I think, starting a little bit later, and since I didn't have the duration controls, I had to manually just cut that portion of the compound clip and then make sure that it was the same amount of frames that this sequence lasted. So then this animation just gets rid of the paper like that, and then it ends up with that first clip that we had originally started with, which is these one right here, and then it just goes out like that. And it's basically sort of like a conclusion to the whole sequence by starting or ending in a similar way or in a reverse way in which it started, like that. So yeah, it was pretty straightforward. It was just mixing a couple of different. The thing that took the most time was this part, the words part, because stacking these letters right here is not ever gonna be just easy because you have to stack things and then position these around. So yeah, I mean, I'm not sure there is a way, but there could be a way to set up maybe with scripts so that to make these as a more like a text plus type of thing, so that then there's a window where you just write hello, for example, and then it grabs the clips from the generators and then puts them in that position. But it's probably gonna require a lot more like programming knowledge and stuff like that, because that's a little bit more complex. So in the meantime, it's probably gonna be faster to just do it this way, to stack things on top of the other generators like that. But then after you do it, you just have to save it. If there is something that you're just gonna continue to use, like a set of words, like your intro or your channel name or anything, then you can just do it once and then save that, or just save the rendered piece of that, right? So yeah, that is pretty much the breakdown of that intro sequence. Oh, and let me just show you the sound effects. Actually, I had forgotten about that. So for the sound effects, I just used a bunch of the paperful effects sound effects right here that we can see, since all of these are paper inspired or related sounds. We have these fola right here. Then we have these other one for each of the generators of the letters that are just popping out. I just try to use a different one so that we have a little bit more variation, right? And the same thing goes for everything. It's just basically paperful effects. And I think maybe there's a little bit of a, yeah, there's a flash camera effect right here for these flash transition that we have here. And then we also have this shutter for this transition that is not like a paper folding out or anything, but it's just like a paper moving. So that shutter, which it's almost like you can barely perceive it, right? But it just makes it look interesting. Let's take a look at these again, just so that we can pay attention to that. But this one has a sort of like a shutter button, a shutter effect, and mixed up with a little bit of I don't remember this logo one, what it was. I think it's like a riser. Let's see. Yeah, we have like a riser right here. And then this is, I think, part of the same one, but it's just like a different section in reverse. Like that drop that we have right here, but I just increase the volume of that so that it's a little bit more noticeable and more impactful. And then we have these another fold effect. Then again, here we have the camera shutter. I think I had added a stop motion for these. Maybe I think I have that idea that I had added a stop motion type of thing for this part, but it's not showing up right here, so I'm not entirely sure. I thought there was like a like moving of it. I could be wrong, I don't know. So then we have these flash again for the little brightness. That's probably the easiest transition to add sounds to, is just like any type of flash transition, because you just add like a camera shutter or like a flash effect and it looks perfect. Then we have these another paperful effects right here for the scratches when they show up. They're not scratches, they're just the torn paper type of figure illustration. I don't know what you call this image. And then here we have another sound effect for this transition. I think I had stacked one on top of the other one just to make it a little bit more impactful, I guess. I mean, yeah, when you stack two sound effects of the same one, it ends up sounding a little bit more full sometimes, and you can add reverb and stuff like that, and it just makes it a little bit better even. So yeah, and that's the last one. After it disappears, then we have the last one, which is another sound effect from the paperful effects, which is just this one of the thing going back to where it all started. And then it ends with whatever you want to put in here. In the times that I used it, I was just starting the video when I was talking about the paperful effect stuff. So yeah, that is the breakdown of how I did that intro sequence. Now, other than that, it's pretty straightforward. You know, it's pretty straightforward. It's just drag and drop, and you just move things around and test things out. And then the final touch is always to add a little bit of sound effects so that it actually comes alive. The effects come alive. Now, if you've liked these, make sure to go to the Paperful Effects website so you can check out more details on it. There's a bunch of like questions that you might have. There's the FAQ right there. And if you have any questions, you can also there's a bubble that I've developed that you can just click and it would send you to my Instagram page. And then you can just send me a message right there. And I try to respond as soon as possible. And that is it for this video. Now, if you're still watching, let's just watch that intro sequence once again as a refresher, and then I'll let you go to your next video. That is it for this video. Bye bye.